The last thing I remembered was the floor rushing up to meet me, the sound of my husband's heartless words echoing as my world went black. "Just kneel and apologize to Mom," he had snarled, while his sister, Chloe, shoved me from behind. I had collapsed, my vision swimming, the weight of their cruelty finally crushing me. Then I blinked. Sunlight, pale and shy, filtered through the blinds of a room I knew with haunting familiarity. My bedroom. Beside me, my husband, Leo Miller, was snoring like a freight train, oblivious. A deep, guttural sound that once signified peace now sent a tremor of ice through my veins. My hand rose, trembling, and I gave my cheek a sharp pinch. Pain, real and stinging, shot through my nerves. It wasn't a dream. It was real. I had been reborn. I was back. Back before the final, soul-crushing betrayals. Back before my mother-in-law, Eleanor, had systematically destroyed my life. The memories flooded in, vivid and agonizing. The special fried rice she'd cook only for me, smiling sweetly while serving me a dish laced with something that sent me running to the bathroom with crippling stomach cramps for hours. The food poisoning diagnosis the doctor gave, and her theatrical, tear-filled denial. "Grace must have eaten something bad outside. How could you accuse your own mother?" she'd wailed, and the entire family, Leo included, had turned on me. Knock, knock, knock. The sharp, impatient rapping on our bedroom door was like a hammer blow to my fragile composure. It was her, Eleanor. "Grace, honey, time to get up. You need to take Chloe school shopping today, remember?" Her voice, sickly sweet, pierced the door. I squeezed my eyes shut, pulling the duvet tighter around me. It was barely dawn, the sheer audacity of this woman, this monster, to feign kindness while harboring such malice. The knocking grew more frantic, louder, a desperate percussion that finally stirred the sleeping beast beside me. Leo grunted, shoving me with an impatient hand. "Grace, Mom's calling you. Go open the door." In my previous life, I would have scrambled out of bed, eager to please, desperate to avoid conflict. This time, a cold fire ignited in my gut. I didn't move. I simply kicked my leg straight out, my foot connected squarely with his side. "It's 6 in the morning, I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Are you trying to summon a ghost? If you can't sleep, you can go lie on the floor." Leo, who had just returned from a business trip late last night, was exhausted and disoriented. He shut up, rubbing his side, a confused and angry look on his face. The incessant knocking continued. With a frustrated growl, he stomped to the door and flung it open. "Mom, what is it? It's 6 a.m. What do you need Grace for?" Eleanor, who had been standing there with a smug, self-satisfied smirk, froze. Her expression faltered the moment she saw it was her precious son, not her meek daughter-in-law. "Oh, Leo dear, I didn't know you were back from your trip," she stammered. Leo rubbed his eyes, his voice thick with irritation. "I got back last night. I barely got any sleep before you started banging on the door. Whatever it is, can't it wait until the sun is actually up?" Before she could invent an excuse, he slammed the door in her face, the sound echoing the finality of my old life. He stumbled back to bed and was snoring again within minutes. I lay there, awake in the darkness, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. In my past life, I was the compliant lamb, led to the slaughter by this family, but they had forgotten something about lambs. When you push one too far, when you corner it with no way out, it doesn't just lie down and die. It learns to become a wolf. The old Grace was gone, vanished in that final moment of collapse. The woman lying in this bed now was someone new, someone who remembered every tear, every insult, every act of sabotage. And she was going to make them pay for every last one. The games were just beginning. Leo and I slept until noon. The silence from my mother-in-law was a clear sign that her morning ambush had been for my benefit alone. When she realized she'd woken her precious son, she had retreated, but I knew her retreat was only temporary. I padded into the bathroom, a room I now considered a minefield. My toothbrush, toothpaste, and a small bottle of face wash were kept in a sealed bag in my purse. I wouldn't touch anything left out in the open. After a quick wash, I walked out to find Leo already at the kitchen table, munching on toast.
Just as the old saying goes, when there's no daughter-in-law, the whole family is anxious. Once you have one, the whole family bullies her. Eleanor, true to her form, seemed to fear I might steal a scrap of food from her son. The moment she saw me, she rushed over, grabbing my arm. "Grace, perfect timing, let's go. We need to get to the mall to buy all of Chloe's things for her first semester at college." Chloe, my sister-in-law, was still asleep, probably up all night playing games on her phone. But that didn't matter to Eleanor. The chance to use me as her personal ATM was too good to pass up. In my past life, I had spent a small fortune on that ungrateful girl. The latest cosmetics, a new laptop, designer clothes, I bought her the best of everything. The more I gave, the more she took for granted, even acting as if it was my solemn duty as her sister-in-law. This life, if she wanted a single penny from me, she would have to pay a price. I pulled my arm free. "I'm sorry, Eleanor, I can't go to the mall today. I have to catch up on work." Leo immediately looked up from his toast, annoyed. "You're a man. How are you supposed to know what to buy for a girl's dorm?" he said, directing his words to me, not his mother.
Eleanor chimed in, her voice laced with false sympathy. "You can work overtime any day, Grace. Chloe starts school tomorrow. As her sister-in-law, you should show some support." I almost laughed. Her ever-so-caring mother is right here. Why do you need me? I turned to leave. "I can't talk. My boss is waiting for me." As I turned, a brilliant, vicious idea sparked in my mind. I stopped, and the smile on their faces froze. I turned back and held my hand out to Leo. "Honey," I said, my voice dripping with feigned sweetness, "the list of things Chloe wants, a new designer bag, those noise-canceling headphones, all new bedding, that's not going to be less than $2,000 or $3,000. I'll need your credit card." The air grew thick with tension. Eleanor's face soured as if she'd swallowed a lemon. Her hand shot out and slapped mine away. "Why do you need his money?" she hissed. "Don't you have your own salary? As her sister-in-law, spending a little money on her is the right thing to do." The hypocrisy was so astounding, it was almost comical. I let out a sharp, cold laugh. "My salary? Eleanor, you are her own mother, and you aren't willing to spend a dime. Why should I? Do I owe her something? $3,000? Do I look like a bank to you? If you want to rob someone, go somewhere else." I turned on my heel, but before I could take a step, Chloe, who must have been woken by the argument, began to wail from her room. She burst out, tears streaming down her face, and threw herself on the floor. "But I need a new bag. All my friends have one." Leo, who had been content to let me foot the bill, was now furious at the actual price tag. He stormed over to his sobbing sister. "Cry. Go ahead, cry all our money away. You're a student. You need a backpack, not a designer purse. Are you going to college or a fashion show? If you don't want to study, then drop out and get a job." Eleanor, though she doted on Chloe, always favored her son more. Seeing Leo enraged, she quickly switched sides. "He's right, Chloe. You're being unreasonable." Seeing that her tantrum wasn't working, Chloe just cried harder and ran back to her room, slamming the door. I stood by the front door, watching the chaos unfold, a thin, satisfied smile on my lips. I slipped out of the house, not heading to work, but to my best friend's apartment, my new sanctuary for every time I would claim to be working overtime. As I walked into the bright sunshine, leaving them to their self-made drama, I knew this was just the beginning. The pawns were now turning on each other, and the queen had just made her first move. That night, I went to take a shower. As I stepped into the bathroom, I saw it. My bright red bath towel, the one I had purposefully left behind, was damp and crumpled on the floor. I bent down and sniffed it. A damp, sour odor, the unmistakable scent of dirty feet hit my nose. That old witch had done it again, but this time, instead of disgust, a cold, clinical satisfaction washed over me. Today, on my way home from my overtime at my friend's place, I had purchased a new set of disposable toothbrushes and single-use bath towels. The red towel was now Leo's problem.
The thought of Eleanor's petty scheme backfiring directly onto her own beloved son made me suppress a laugh. The next day, when I came home from my actual job, I walked into my bedroom and noticed it immediately. My entire collection of high-end skincare sitting on my vanity was gone. I knew instantly that Chloe had taken it, but I felt no anger because I knew exactly what her mother had done to that expensive cream. In my past life, Eleanor had been horrified that I would spend nearly $300 on a single jar of moisturizer. It didn't matter that it was my own hard-earned money. She saw it as a personal insult. So, she had secretly mixed something foul into the jar. My face had erupted in painful, cystic acne. Leo, far from being sympathetic, had sneered, "Serves you right. If you had given me that money for the mortgage, this wouldn't have happened." Back then, I had suspected something was wrong and secretly installed a micro camera in our room. The footage was damning. Eleanor sneaking in and stirring a gritty, dark substance into my brand new cream. When I confronted her with the video, she had the audacity to start screaming that she was going to jump off the balcony. She tearfully claimed it was a secret traditional herbal remedy from a wise old doctor meant to help my skin. Chloe had swallowed the lie completely, pointing a finger at me and screaming, "You're a monster, Grace. Mom was just trying to help you." Now, in this life, I smiled. Let Chloe personally experience her mother's kindness. Let her use all the tainted cosmetics she wanted. We'll see how long she defended her conniving mother then. A month passed. Chloe came home for her fall break. The moment she walked through the door, my jaw almost dropped. Her once clear skin was a battlefield of angry, inflamed cysts and red, peeling patches. It was a nightmare. It was far worse than what I had suffered. Eleanor, who still didn't know her daughter had been using my skincare, went into a panic. She dragged Chloe straight to a dermatologist. 2 hours later, the doctor delivered his diagnosis, his face a mask of professional gravity.
She has a severe fungal infection, he said, looking at Chloe's chart. Specifically, athlete's foot fungus on her face. Eleanor looked like she had been struck by lightning. She grabbed Chloe's shoulders, her hands trembling. "Honey, did you use your sister-in-law's skincare?" Chloe, who had assumed her breakout was from late-night study sessions, now understood. The truth hit her like a physical blow. She burst into tears. "They were designer brands. I only used a little bit." The realization that she herself had caused her daughter's horrifying condition finally dawned on Eleanor. But instead of remorse, her face twisted with rage. She stomped home and burst through the door, pointing a shaking finger at me. "Grace Evans, what kind of garbage did you buy? Look what you did to Chloe's face. You have to take responsibility for this. The doctor said restorative treatments will cost at least $5,000. Give me the money now." Chloe stood behind her, sobbing and screaming, "You ruined my face, Grace. You have to pay." They wanted to pin this on me? Not this time. I pulled out my phone, my expression the perfect blend of shock and dawning horror. I feigned a story with a calm voice. "Oh my God, Mom, I have a security camera in my room. I was just reviewing the footage today, and I saw you putting something in my cosmetics. Now Chloe gets a fungal infection after using them." "Wait," I gasped, covering my mouth in theatrical disgust. "Don't tell me you put foot fungus in my moisturizer. That's disgusting." I looked from my phone to Eleanor, my eyes wide with manufactured horror, as if I were looking at a piece of trash. She heard this and froze, her tear-streaked face turning towards her mother. "Is that true, Mom? Did you really do that?" Eleanor heard me mention the camera, and all the color drained from her face. She stared at me, then at her daughter's horrified expression, and her mouth opened and closed like a fish, but no words came out. She couldn't deny it. I pressed my advantage, my voice dripping with false sympathy.
Thank goodness I installed that camera, or I'd be taking the blame for this today. Oh, poor Chloe. I just can't imagine how long it will take for your face to heal. That was the final blow for Chloe. Seeing her mother's guilty silence, the full disgusting truth crashed down on her. A strangled sob escaped her lips, and she spun around, clutching her stomach, and sprinted for the bathroom. We heard the sound of violent retching, followed by a muffled scream. "You're disgusting! How could you?" In reality, my phone had nothing on it. I had bluffed, setting a perfect trap, and my mother-in-law had walked right into it and confessed with her silence. Chloe spent the next 3 days locked in her room, refusing to speak to her mother. The day before she was due back to school, I saw Eleanor repeating a familiar ritual from my past life. The trap was being set. Her famous hair removal cream in my conditioner bottle. Perfect timing, I thought with a grim smile. Later that day, while Chloe was sullenly packing, I put on my best caring sister-in-law act. I went into her room with a few items. "Don't want you to have to buy new things right away," I said sweetly. While helping her arrange her suitcase, I discreetly slipped the tainted bottle of conditioner, the one from our master bathroom, into her bag. "Here, take this one. It's the good stuff." She was still angry at her mother, but she was also cheap. She took it without a second thought. Back in our bathroom, I replaced it with a brand new, untampered bottle. Now all I had to do was wait for the two of them to tear each other apart. The thought was exhilarating. After seeing Chloe off at the bus station, I had just stepped back into the house when Eleanor started her next game. "Grace, dear," she began, a little too casually, "that conditioner you bought, I tried a little and it's just wonderful." I turned, raising an eyebrow, and decided to play along. "Really? I don't know, Mom. My hair has been feeling a little heavy lately. I was thinking of stopping using it." The manufactured smile on her face instantly froze. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes. "Oh, no, you shouldn't do that," she said, a little too quickly. "It's a good product. You should use it all. Don't let it go to waste." If I stopped using it, she'd just have to come up with a more devious plan to harm me. I gave her a bright smile. "I'm just kidding, Mom. A conditioner this good? I wouldn't dream of wasting it." The relief that washed over her face was unmistakable. She patted my arm, convinced her plan was back on track. I smiled back, but my eyes were cold as ice. The next act of our little play was now set, and the star of the show had no idea what was waiting for her in the wings.
That weekend, with both Leo and me home, Eleanor announced she was going to cook a special feast to make up for all the recent misunderstandings. When the dishes were served, I immediately recognized it. A heaping bowl of golden fried rice, the very same dish that had given me crippling food poisoning in my past life. Eleanor smiled, pushing the bowl directly in front of me. "Grace, honey, you have to try this. It's a special recipe I learned online. I made it just for you. You'll love it." She had her plan, but I had mine. I accidentally knocked a stack of mail off the counter, and as I picked it up, I pulled out a promotional flyer from the new grocery store down the street. "Oh, wow, Mom, look at this. Eggs are on sale. A carton of 40 for just $2. Before I could even finish, Eleanor snatched the flyer from my hand, her eyes squinting at the fine print. A moment later, she gasped, "That cheap? You two start eating. I'm going to run down and buy some." Before she left, she didn't forget to point at the bowl in front of me. "Grace, you make sure you eat all of that rice now. Don't let it get cold." To put her at ease, I gave her a dazzling smile and a thumbs up. "It smells amazing, Mom. My mouth is already watering." Her suspicious eyes were finally satisfied, and she hurried out the door. The moment she was gone, my father-in-law, Robert, who had been quietly eating, gestured toward the fried rice. "That looks good. Let me try some." In my past life, this man was no saint. Every time Eleanor tormented me, he would play the part of the wise peacemaker, telling me his wife was just old-fashioned and that I needed to be a more generous and forgiving daughter-in-law. This time, he could have a taste of his wife's good intentions himself.
"Of course, Dad. Please, have it all," I said cheerfully, pushing the entire bowl over to him. He beamed and began shoveling it into his mouth, praising his wife's cooking with every bite. I felt not a shred of guilt. Eleanor wasn't even home yet when the rumbling started. It began as a low gurgle from deep within Robert's stomach, loud enough to make Leo look up from his plate. "Dad, you okay? Your stomach is really loud." Before Robert could answer, he shot up from his chair as if launched by a spring, clutching his abdomen. He made a desperate, waddling dash for the bathroom. On his way, a wet, sputtering sound escaped him, releasing a foul cloud that drifted directly into Leo's horrified face. Leo's eyes went wide. His face turned a shade of green as he dropped his fork, grabbed the nearest trash can, and began to vomit violently. I had already anticipated this, covering my nose with a napkin and moving to the far side of the room the moment I saw Robert stand up. A few minutes later, Eleanor returned, her arms laden with groceries. She walked in, sniffed the noxious air, and a triumphant smirk spread across her face, assuming her plan had worked. She tiptoed to the bathroom door, which was still occupied, and knocked lightly. "Grace, is that you in there?" she cooed, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Did you get a tummy ache? You must have eaten something bad outside again." She covered her mouth, trying to hide her giggles. From inside the bathroom, a pained, furious roar erupted. "You damn old woman! What the hell did you cook? I ate that rice and my guts are exploding." Another series of violent, explosive sounds echoed from behind the door. Eleanor froze, her smug expression shattering. She spun around and stormed over to me, her face crimson with rage. "Grace, did you not eat the rice I made for you?" I put on my most innocent, doe-eyed expression, twisting my hands nervously. "No, Mom. Dad said the rice smelled wonderful and that you never make special things for him, so I gave it to him. Was he not supposed to eat it?" Her finger, pointing at my face, trembled with unspeakable fury, but she was trapped. She couldn't admit she had tried to poison me. Leo, still heaving into the trash can, could only glare at his mother. I stood there, the picture of innocence, but inside, I was laughing so hard I could barely stand. In this life, I didn't need to be vicious. All I had to do was step aside and let them destroy each other. After nearly half an hour, the sounds from the bathroom finally ceased. The silence was more alarming than the noise. Eleanor, hearing her husband's weakening groans, ran to my room and practically tore the door open. "Grace, your father, I think he fainted in the bathroom. Quick, we have to get him to the hospital," she shrieked. I looked over at Leo. "Honey, you should call 911 and get an ambulance for Dad." Eleanor immediately shot down the idea. "An ambulance? Are you crazy? Do you know how much that costs? You have money to burn? No, you and Leo will carry him downstairs and we'll get a taxi. It's much cheaper." Both Leo and I stared at her, speechless. She was still trying to save a few bucks while her husband was unconscious in a biohazard zone of a bathroom. "Hurry up, he's fainted." I pressed a hand to my forehead and leaned back weakly against the headboard. "Mom, you and Leo should carry him. I can't. I threw up my whole dinner," I lied smoothly. "My legs feel like jelly. I'm too dizzy to stand." Frustrated and panicked, Leo finally made the call. He pulled his father out of the bathroom while we waited. Robert was a mess, his face pale as a sheet, his clothes disheveled. The EMTs arrived, their faces professional, but their nostrils flaring at the overwhelming stench. We lived in a third-floor walk-up. As the EMTs loaded Robert onto the stretcher, he let out another weak, sputtering noise. The neighbors, likely thinking a sewage pipe had burst, cautiously opened their doors to peek into the hallway. Their eyes widened as they saw the procession. 2 EMTs carrying a pale-faced man on a stretcher who was still, audibly, leaking gas. Robert, who was only semi-conscious, sensed the dozens of eyes on him. A wave of red crept up his neck. The sheer, utter humiliation was too much for him to bear. Before they even reached the first-floor landing, he fainted for real. At the hospital, the diagnosis was predictable: severe food poisoning. Leo, having finally reached his limit, turned on his mother in the waiting room. You just had to buy cheap, spoiled food, didn't you? You poisoned Dad, and now look at this hospital bill. Are you happy now? Eleanor glared daggers at me, but she was trapped and couldn't reveal the truth. She could only sputter denials and slap her thigh in frustration. I sat quietly in the corner, calmly sipping a cup of vending machine coffee, enjoying the show. This time, when her schemes backfired, she would have to swallow the consequences herself. A few days after Robert was discharged, just as a tense, angry peace had settled over the house, Chloe came back. It wasn't school break. She just appeared at the door, sobbing hysterically. She threw herself into Eleanor's arms, her voice choked with terror. "Mom, I think I have leukemia. My hair, it just keeps falling out. You have to take me to the hospital. I'm so scared." With trembling hands, Chloe pulled off the beanie she was wearing. There on the crown of her head was a perfectly smooth, shining bald patch, the size of a saucer. It looked exactly like a textbook case of male pattern baldness. I had to physically bite my lip and turn away to keep from bursting out laughing. Eleanor stared, her eyes wide with a dawning, familiar horror. It was the same look she had when she realized her tainted cosmetics were to blame for Chloe's face. A strange glint in her eyes appeared as a terrible suspicion began to form. "Chloe," she said, her voice barely a whisper, Did you use the conditioner from the bathroom?" Chloe sniffled, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Yes," she whimpered. "Sister-in-law said it was a designer brand. She even put it in my suitcase for me and told me to use it at school. Is there something wrong with it?" The confirmation was all Eleanor needed. She rounded on me, her face a mask of pure fury. All pretense of her own guilt forgotten. "You!" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "Who told you to give that conditioner to Chloe? You must have bought some cheap, toxic garbage. Look at what you've done to my daughter. You will pay for her hair transplant surgery." I looked at her, my expression calm, my heart rate steady. "Mom, Chloe hasn't even been properly diagnosed by a doctor yet. How can you be so sure it was my conditioner? Besides," I added, my voice turning steely, "you were the one who told me it was such a wonderful product. The first thing we need to do is get a real diagnosis." I turned to Chloe, my voice softening into a tone of righteous indignation. "Chloe, don't you worry. If your hair loss isn't from a medical condition, then it's definitely the product's fault. Your sister-in-law will get justice for you. We'll report the company immediately. We'll get a lawyer and sue them for $1 million in damages." Just a moment ago, Chloe had been glaring at me with pure hatred. But at the mention of $1 million, her tears stopped instantly. Her eyes, though red-rimmed, now gleamed with a predatory light. I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling my company's legal department right now to get a recommendation." "No!" Eleanor lunged forward and grabbed my arm, her eyes wild with panic. "Don't you dare call a lawyer." I feigned confusion. "Why not, Mom?" Chloe, dreaming of her $1 million payout, turned on her mother. "Yeah, Mom, what's wrong with you? That company ruined my hair. Why can't we sue?" "That's right, Mom. Why not?" Trapped with no logical escape, Eleanor resorted to her ultimate weapon, the tantrum. She collapsed onto the carpet, beating her fists on the floor, her wails echoing through the house. "The Miller family is a good, decent family. We have never, ever had to deal with police or lawyers. If you bring that kind of shame on this house, I'll just die. I'll die right here."
Chloe was incandescent with rage. "You want to die? Fine, go die. I'm calling for justice, not committing a crime." She snatched her own phone out and furiously started dialing 911. Before she could press call, Eleanor scrambled up and slapped the phone out of her hand. It flew through the air, hit the tiled floor of the entryway, and shattered. A sound like a fire alarm escaped Chloe's lungs. It was a shriek of pure, unfiltered rage. The mother and daughter stared at each other, one panting from exertion, the other trembling with fury. Finally, Chloe pointed at the broken phone. You owe me $1,200 for a new phone," she screamed. Seeing my opportunity, I glanced at my watch. Oh, look at the time.
I have that urgent conference call with the marketing team. I really have to go." Without a backward glance, I grabbed my purse and walked out the door, leaving the two of them to fight over the broken pieces of their relationship. The sound of their screaming followed me down the stairs. A vicious sister-in-law? I thought. A real, genuine smile finally reaching my face. Perfect. Let the two of you handle each other for a while. The game was getting more enjoyable by the minute. When I got home that evening, the house was quiet. Chloe was nowhere to be seen. It seemed Eleanor had managed to pacify her daughter, most likely by emptying her own wallet. My suspicions were confirmed when I scrolled through Instagram. There was Chloe, posing in a mirror selfie, flashing a brand new iPhone. Rio must have seen it too because my phone rang almost immediately. "Did you buy Chloe a new phone?" he demanded without even saying hello. I calmly and decisively threw my mother-in-law under the bus. "No, I didn't. You should probably ask your mother about that." 15 minutes later, the front door burst open with a bang. Leo stormed into the living room, his face black with anger. "Mom!" he yelled. "Did you buy Chloe a new iPhone?" Eleanor, a master liar, denied it without batting an eye. She claimed Chloe had a new rich boyfriend who had bought her as an apology gift after their fight. She spun the tale with such convincing detail that Leo, in his simple-mindedness, actually believed her. Her 3 attempts to harm me had all failed, backfiring spectacularly on her own family. Now, the way Eleanor looked at me was different. The fake sweetness was gone, replaced by a cold, undisguised hostility. It didn't take long for her to try again. That night, I went to take a shower. As I opened the bathroom door, I saw her. Eleanor was in there, using the red towel, Leo's towel, to scrub her feet. I feigned a gasp. "Mom, what are you doing? Why are you using my towel to wipe your feet?" She looked up, her lips curled in a sneer, her voice dripping with entitlement. "It's just a towel. What's the big deal? It's all part of the body. My feet are made of flesh just like your face. What's the difference? This entire house was bought with Miller money. As the matriarch, I can use anything I want." She was already gearing up for her victim act. Oh, daughters-in-law these days, so disrespectful of their elders. Just then, Leo walked out of the bedroom drawn by our raised voices. Without asking a single question, he immediately took his mother's side. "What's all the yelling about now?" he sighed, frowning at me. "Grace, I've told you, Mom has done so much for us. Can't you be a little more respectful and just let things go? Having an elder in the house is a blessing. You are not to argue with her again." If I didn't know the truth about the towel, his sanctimonious lecture would have made me sick. Instead, it was the perfect setup. I nodded, my face a mask of meek agreement. "You're right, honey. I'm sorry." I smiled sweetly at Eleanor. "Mom, please don't be angry with me. You are a generous person. If you want to use Leo's towel to wipe your feet, please, go right ahead." I turned back to my husband. "You're such a good, dutiful son, Leo. I'm sure Mom using your towel for her feet doesn't bother you, do you?" From the moment I had been reborn, I had been preparing for this. I told Leo his old towel was stained and bought him a new one, the red one. My own things were kept in my room, and I used disposable towels. There was no way for her to get to me. Leo's face went from confused to pale to a deep, blotchy red. He was practically vibrating with rage. He choked out, "Mom, that's disgusting. Don't you have your own towel? Why would you use mine to wipe your feet? Are you senile?" He finally made the connection. "No wonder my towel always has that smell. I thought it was just mildew from the bathroom. Oh my God." Before he could finish, he lunged for the sink and began to retch, the sound echoing in the small bathroom. Eleanor, still holding the offending red towel, was completely dumbfounded. "Leo, honey, isn't that Grace's towel? Why would a grown man use a red towel?" Leo was too busy heaving to answer. I decided to add one last nail to the coffin. "Honey," I said, my voice filled with fake concern. "Remember how Mom put that herbal remedy in my skincare and gave Chloe a fungal infection on her face? You've been complaining about itching down there for a while now. You don't think you caught the same athlete's foot fungus, do you?" At those words, Leo's legs gave out. He slid to the floor, his face a mask of pure horror, his voice a terrified whisper. "Grace, take me to the hospital, now!" Eager to witness his humiliation, I dutifully helped a horrified Leo to the car and drove him to the emergency room. We ended up with the very same doctor who had treated Chloe. The man looked at me, then at Leo, with an expression of profound, weary suspicion, as if I were the bringer of some bizarre family curse. After a series of tests, he placed the results on the table. "Well," the doctor said, adjusting his glasses, "the fungus on your buttocks and genital area is, indeed, tinea pedis, athlete's foot." Leo's eyes went wide and vacant. He stared at the doctor, then at me, then back at the test results. Like a puppet with its strings cut, he slid right off the chair and collapsed onto the floor in a boneless heap. When we got home, the first thing I did was pack my pillows and clothes and move into the spare bedroom Chloe used when she was home. Leo, utterly broken, locked himself in our old room. When my father-in-law, Robert, found out that his wife's disgusting habits had now infected his own son, he flew into a rage. For the next 2 weeks, the house was filled with the sound of his shouting. Eleanor, knowing she was unequivocally in the wrong, became as meek as a mouse, not daring to cause any more trouble. With the drama at home on pause, my life flourished. At work, my projects were exceeding all expectations, and my manager started talking about promoting me to a team lead position. I felt light, free, and powerful. Leo, on the other hand, was in a downward spiral. Eleanor, seeing her son so despondent and refusing to speak to her, decided the only way to win back her affection was through her cooking. She planned to make him a lavish meal of spicy stir-fried crab. But being Eleanor, she couldn't bring herself to pay full price. So she went to the supermarket and hovered by the seafood counter like a vulture, waiting for the live crabs to die so she could scoop them up at a massive discount. The next day, she proudly packed the spicy crab dish, made from questionable ingredients, into a lunchbox for Leo. At noon, he ate every last bite. That afternoon, he had the most important meeting of his career, a quarterly review with the company's vice president. He stood in the VP's office, clicking through his presentation, his words smooth and confident. He was halfway through his report when a low, ominous rumble echoed from deep within his gut. He thought he could make it. He just had to get through the last 10 slides. He clenched his muscles, sweat beading on his forehead. But the destructive power of crab that has sat out overnight is not something a man can conquer with willpower alone. He couldn't hold it. There was a sudden wet, explosive sound that seemed to suck all the air out of the room. A dark stain bloomed across the back of his khaki pants, and a smell of breathtaking foulness instantly filled the executive office. The VP, a man who had seen market crashes and hostile takeovers, had never witnessed a horror of this magnitude. He shrieked, scrambling away from his desk and running straight to the Human Resources Department, demanding Leo be fired on the spot. Word spread through the office with the speed of a wildfire. "Did you hear? Leo Miller pooped his pants in the VP's office." He was a legend for all the wrong reasons. Utterly humiliated, with no way to salvage his reputation, Leo walked out of the company that day and never returned. At home, his mother was eagerly awaiting praise for her delicious cooking. She was about to get something very different. He came home to a mother eagerly awaiting praise. What he gave her was a storm of rage that had been brewing for a lifetime. "You and your cheap, rotten food!" Leo screamed, his voice raw with anguish as he threw his soiled work bag on the floor. "I worked for years to get that promotion, years, and you destroyed it all in one afternoon. Because of your rotten crabs, I was humiliated in front of my boss and lost my job. Are you satisfied now? You've finally ruined me." After being berated for weeks, Eleanor's patience snapped. The guilt she felt was instantly consumed by her defensive anger. "How was that my fault?" she shrieked back. "I was being nice, cooking for you. The crabs were fresh when I bought them. How do I know you didn't eat something else that made you sick? You can't blame me for everything." Her denial was so blatant, so absurd, that even Robert finally stepped in. "Enough, Eleanor," he shouted. "You were wrong. Just admit it. Stop making excuses." Being ganged up on by both her son and her husband was too much. Eleanor did the only thing she knew how to do. She let out a piercing wail and threw herself on the floor, pounding the ground. "Ungrateful! The both of you are ungrateful. I sacrificed my whole life for this family. I used my life savings to help buy this house, and this is the things I get? You ungrateful child, I hope lightning strike you down." Leo stared at his flailing mother, the tears of rage and shame finally spilling down his face. Knowing he would never get an apology, never get an admission of guilt, he simply gave up. He turned, walked into Chloe's empty room, and shut the door.
He stayed in there for 3 days. His company officially classified his departure as job abandonment, meaning he received no severance. Watching this final, pathetic drama unfold, I knew it was time. I calmly gathered my financial documents and walked to the spare room. "Leo," I said, my voice even and calm, "let's get a divorce." He looked up, his eyes bloodshot and panicked. "What? No, Grace, don't do this. Mom, she's just getting old and confused. She doesn't mean any harm. We've been together for years. We can't just give up. We were going to have kids together, a whole family." I almost laughed at the pathetic display. A family? Or a piggy bank to pay for your mortgage now that you're unemployed? Let's be honest, Leo. Your mother is not confused. She is malicious. Her attacks were always aimed at me, but her incompetence meant they hit everyone else instead. The towel, the face cream, the fried rice. If I stay here, I'll be the next one to lose my job, my health, or my sanity. I'm done. I left him there, stammering his empty promises. All of my important belongings were already at Miss Friend's place. The rest was just stuff. I would let the lawyers handle the details. A week later, after I had already accepted a transfer to our corporate headquarters in New York, I logged into the security camera app one last time. The divorce papers and the first overdue mortgage notice had arrived on the same day. The Miller house was once again a war zone. Leo was screaming at his mother, blaming her for being too stubborn to put my name on the deed, which would have legally tied me to the debt. A few days after that, I watched as Chloe came home. A trip to a specialist had confirmed her worst fears. The cheap depilatory cream had caused permanent chemical burns to her scalp, destroying the hair follicles. The doctor had declared her baldness a life sentence. She was demanding thousands of dollars for hair transplants, money Eleanor simply didn't have. I watched as Eleanor tried to console her by saying that being bald would save time on hair washing, giving her more time to study so she could get into an Ivy League school. The ensuing fight was apocalyptic. The last time I checked the feed, the house was quiet. Leo, a recluse, was trying to become an online streamer, begging for donations from a handful of viewers. The foreclosure notice from the bank was sitting unopened on the kitchen table. I logged out and deleted the app. My new life was a world away from that chaos. It was filled with the crisp autumn air of a new city, the challenge of a new promotion, and the profound, beautiful silence of a small apartment that was entirely my own. The greatest and sweetest revenge wasn't in destroying them. It was in leaving them behind to fester in the mess that they had made for themselves, while I simply walked away, healed, and became whole again.